guidelines. Okay, good afternoon. The City Council is abiding by the Governor's Safe Start Washington guidelines. Our county is in phase 2 and we are still not able to have in-person meetings at this time. As a result, City Council meetings will continue to be held remotely. And we encourage you to provide comments or concerns on any matter via email at council@everettwa.gov. You may also watch the meetings on Comcast Channel 21 or Frontier Channel 29, and it is also available online at www.everettwa.gov/City Council. You may call in to listen to the meeting at any point by dialing 1-425-616-3920, conference ID 724-887-726, #. We are allowing the public to call in to participate in the council meeting, and we ask that you please try to call starting at 12:00 p.m. before the meeting begins at 12:30. If you wish to provide public comment via Teams, please call 1-425-616-3920. Conference ID is 870-447-398, #. Once the meeting starts at 12:30, you should be, if you have any difficulty calling in, please email Deb at debdwilliams@everettwa.gov. She will monitor that email and try to assist you. It is important to remember, as we allow our community members to participate, we ask you to please be patient as we learn how to improve our broadcasts. If you have any difficulties or suggestions, we encourage you to contact the council's offices at 425-257-8703, and we thank you for understanding. This council believes strongly in transparency. We want our community members to feel assured that we will continue to improve our broadcast to ensure your input and participation. So thank you for your patience and understanding. We know these are challenging times and appreciate your understanding as we continue to reach out to our community and keep everyone informed as we navigate through this time. And with that, I would like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting for Wednesday, July 8th, 2020. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Yes, Councilmember Stonecipher.
Here.
Councilmember Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely.
Here.
Councilmember Bader.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Excused.
President Toohey.
Here. So do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes for July 1, 2020?
Murphy moves approval.
All right, second.
Bader, second.
Stonecipher, second.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stonecipher.
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader, excuse me.
Yes.
President Toohey.
Yes. And now moving on to mayor's comments. Mayor Franklin.
Yeah, good afternoon. I just want to also say for the record, I'm here. I wasn't called in the roll call, so just make sure you make note of that, Sharon. Thank you. At the end of the council comments, I've asked City Attorney David Hall to share a few words about what's happening with the encampment on Rucker. I know there's been a number of questions from the council and the community, so when after we all kind of share our updates, the city attorney will have a brief update on that. So just wanted to let you know. But a few of our council members have asked me to share an update on our work as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion here at the City of Everett. And so I'll apologize in advance. It'll just take me a couple minutes, but I do want to give you a brief overview of what we've been working on in the last 2.5 years. In January 2018, I issued a mayoral directive on community engagement and inclusion. And the first initiative in that directive was to develop a clearly defined vision for the city. And that vision is One Everett, a connected and engaged community built on trust, inclusion, and equity. The second initiative was to improve equity and diversity at the city to ensure our workforce represents the community we serve. So we've made a number of changes in our HR practices. We changed our civil service rules to allow the ability to hire candidates further down the eligibility list. So in public safety, that's now the top 10, and it's the top 5 for non-public safety positions. Previously, we were limited to just looking at the top 3 candidates. We've also removed the written test for most processes, removing barriers to employment. And we've implemented bias training for all hiring team members. We've also made a number of other changes in job descriptions, recruitment goals, outreach, and other areas of HR to support equity and diversity. The third initiative in the directive was to increase access and communication with our community. So we established an open data portal on our website. We share live crime mapping online with our neighborhoods. We've increased our outreach on social media platforms and newsletters, website, and other channels. The fourth initiative was improving customer service, and the fifth initiative was promoting opportunities to engage youth in the city of Everett. And so for that, we created a youth advisory board that strives to reflect the diversity of our community and also advises on any relevant issues as it relates to young people in our community. And we created a youth summer internship program with Everett Public Schools, as you're aware. That initiative was a good start. We have a few more updates as it relates to this work. We have a Chiefs Advisory Board that also strives to reflect the diversity of our city, and those members advise the chief on a number of concerns and policies as it relates to public safety. We've had for a long time a Diversity Advisory Board. Councilmember Moore serves as the liaison, and our Community Development Director, Julie Willey, and Captain Rod Sniffen serve as co-chairs for the staff. Those members also strive to reflect the diversity of the city in color, culture, ethnicity, gender, orientation, and ability. And they advise the administration on any relevant, timely concerns, so that they can represent that community voice. They've been conducting an annual equity training, which was delayed sadly this year because of COVID. And the 2019, they spent a lot of time focusing on their governance and recruitment processes to ensure that advisory board was a high functioning board that reflected the community. 2020 work plan includes a focus on tribal government, Native American learning and acknowledgement, understanding how our school districts are addressing diversity, equity, inclusion, and working with staff to create an engage and learn series on equity. And they're also working together with HR on some ongoing work. We also hold a number of community relationships. There's a lot of really fabulous work going on throughout our city as it relates to equity. So we partner very closely with Everett Public Schools, Mukilteo Schools, Everett Community College, Providence Hospital, United Way of Snohomish County. I know our team works with the NAACP, Communities of Color Coalition, Leadership Snohomish County, Connect Casino Road stakeholders, and the Community Foundation of Snohomish County. Very recently, we've conducted some listening sessions. We did a listening session together with our BIPOC communities, with our police chief and myself. We did a listening session together with our diversity board, just with me and the diversity board, as well as council member Moore. And then the Chiefs Advisory Group did a listening session with our police chief. And later this month, we will be doing a listening session with Black residents and businesses, together with our equity manager. We've also been doing a number of trainings with our directors and managers on diversity, equity, inclusion, understanding privilege and racism. And again, those were delayed this year because of COVID, but hopefully we can continue those in the near future. We have an interdepartmental engagement team that was established in 2018 that serves as our diversity, equity, inclusion champions inside the city and in different departments. And they've created a series of opportunities for staff at all levels to engage and learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know many departments work on these topics. The library has done a number of series on diversity and equity. Our fire chief is doing a listening session together with his diverse team members to hear what's working and what's not. Our cultural arts department has supported diversity and culture in the art community. And obviously we work really hard to ensure that we have translation services and interpretation so that we can engage with non-English speakers in our community. And I think very recently you've heard some of the work that our police department is doing. So you may have heard me just mention an equity manager. So today I'm very happy to announce that we're creating our very first equity manager position at the City of Everett, and we're promoting Kay Barnes and our HR team to that new role. She's been employed with the city since 2006 as part of our HR team, and prior to being here, she was a senior chief in the Navy. Her role is going to focus on developing and promoting and maintaining an internal culture of equity, and to ensure that staff reflect the diversity of our city, and that our city is a safe place to work for our diverse staff, and that we're well connected to our BIPOC communities. Kay will report directly to me while working closely with our HR team. Although this is not an additional staff member, we're using a team member that we already have here employed. We're really excited that she can focus entirely on equity work and look forward to the positive impact she's going to make. Of course, our community development department, as well as our HR department, will continue to work on these important issues as well. And so, again, I apologize for that lengthy update, but wanted the opportunity to share with you and answer some of the questions I've been receiving from our council as it relates to this work. And with that, no further comments from me today.
All right, thank you very much for that report. Really appreciate that. So we'll move on now to council comments and liaison reports, and we'll start with Councilmember Stonecipher.
I have no comment, no report today.
Okay. Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you, President Tui, Mayor and Council. I am concerned that as council members, we're not being informed timely on matters that are relevant to issues and matters that are directly a part of our responsibilities. Council obviously has the fiscal responsibility for approving certain programs that impact the city's finances, but we also have the responsibility and priority to be attentive to our community's welfare. And I can't speak for the entire city council, but I can tell you that lack of updates and information and learning about matters after they happen, or in some cases being provided only minimal context without full disclosure, is occurring all too often. While we learned last week that the city and county were discussing the transient homeless issue in our own backyard, we were certainly not aware of what was going to happen involving this Everett homeless camp at 3200 Rucker. And I understand we're all concerned about chronic homelessness with serious mental and addiction issues. But you know, we were elected and have a responsibility and a duty to care for our neighborhoods and our residents and to keep them safe. We're being told that this is a Snohomish County problem that they dumped on Everett without any notification and that it was a surprise. But come on, it was in our backyard and in our city, so how can this be a county problem? Clearly, this was a surprise to the council, and certainly I know myself. The county executive did inform the public last week that they were disbanding the homeless encampment at the county campus during Sunday, and no later than Sunday night was my understanding. It seems that we should have understood what the plan was for when that camp got disbanded. And it doesn't really make a difference at this point whether the property owner, where they are in the 3200 block of Rucker, gave them permission or not. There are city land use codes regarding encampments, and the code wasn't followed by whomever was on point. And the city has powers to do something about this. I hope we'll hear something about this later. And I believe there is a section that says that the encampment rules don't apply if there's an emergency or disaster, but certainly we're not in an emergency or disaster mode at this point. So here we are today on July 8th, with I think is a wake-up call to all of us as elected officials, and awareness by our community that all is not well in Everett, and it certainly doesn't look like it's getting any better. As council members, I think we need to use all our resources within our means to stop this camping activity here in Everett. Another surprise that occurred twice in the last 2 weeks was the communication by administration regarding a Juneteenth holiday. And I understand we'll be talking about that later. But in the midst of a financial challenge in the city with reduction in services and closures at the library, the senior center, the parks department, and cutbacks in other areas, without legal authority, the mayor stated that she was providing another holiday actually now going to be 13 holidays for all city employees annually. And while the administration has represented this as a low-cost item, I think it has been projected at $7,000. When you have a limited staff and have to close city services, there's a lost cost of at least $500,000 or more, actually. And that's just simple math, taking all of our 1,200 city employees times 8 hours for a holiday times $50 an hour, which I think is probably on the low end of what the actual hourly cost would be for our employees. But then, after receiving the memo that the mayor had sent out citywide to staff saying that she did not have the authority, which Councilmember Stonecipher and I had pointed out to her in letters, the council, myself included, had to read in the Herald on Sunday that again, she proclaimed that this Juneteenth had been declared a city holiday when she knew she didn't have the authority and had actually sent a memo out to all 1,200 employees stating that. Another example, a few weeks ago, we were brought a settlement agreement for over $550,000, and that was presented to us, I believe, on a Monday before the council meeting on Wednesday, with a decision we were told had to be made by Friday of that week. We learned a lot in an executive session that day that I can't discuss, but all I can tell you is that I didn't believe it was a good settlement from my point of view, and I did vote no. The fact that we were surprised again, though, I think is the point here. So, folks, I think this is a wake-up call to all of us. I'd like to suggest that we work together more collaboratively moving forward, and that really the council as elected officials, we need to be kept in the loop when there are policy matters under discussion and better informed of what's coming at us. And that concludes my comments for today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Murphy. We'll move on to Councilmember Roberts.
Thanks, President Toohey. I want to give a brief summary of work regarding the Wood Creek property. As you recall, Council asked me to take a look at that, and I have in fact done that and have been working also with Nick Harper with the administration. And I've visited the site on 3 occasions, and I've also consulted with an engineer who's familiar with the site and other parties, including the Sonoma County Conservation District. My visits have consisted, and I appreciate, incidentally, a number of council members have visited this site, so I appreciate that interest indeed. My visits have focused and have been primarily on the northern edge, which is considered the developable portion of the property. And so I have a question that I don't know that there's an answer now, but I would be interested in whether or not the appraisal for the developable portion of the property included a look at the geotechnical issues associated with the site. And I'll come back to that, but I would just say that in looking at the site, there is a very, very clear steep slope. It's been considered a wooded ravine, and I think it might be more accurately described as a forested cliff. The vegetation on top of that slope is consistent with soils that would be wetter soils. That is to say, there's cedar and other trees and so on. The layered soils underneath are probably Esperance sand and clay, and those kinds of layered soils can be problematic. There is a history of geological issues and slope stability and slope failure in this ravine. So the tree canopy and root system is important for the stability of the what I'll just call the upper portion of the ravine. And so there's some real issues that need to be explored, I think, in a little more detail. It's also important to recognize that as we go out in time, there will be a significant increase in frequency and intensity of storm events which will bring more water to this site. So the notion of removing that tree canopy and the root system would need to be looked at with some care. So I know that we're looking at this site. I know Nick Harper's familiar. I don't think I'm going through anything that he's not familiar with. I know both he and I have independently and to some degree together, we just haven't had time to get together, to talk about working with Forterra or other conservation groups to see what's possible on the site. But I do think the next steps involve those discussions with Forterra, which I think Nick Harper is trying to pull together, and also looking at least at a relatively high level, if not in more detail, a geotechnical analysis from a competent engineer. I'm certainly not an engineer, but someone who would be able to look more critically at those issues to understand, in fact, what is developable on the site, and then also explore options for us going forward that might provide some protection for these areas, for this area, but also possibly open the door to some kind of compensation for the utility for the city. So I'll stop there. Nick, you might want to have some comments, and I know you and I have traded some calls, but I think I just want to make sure council got a summary of sort of where we are with this property.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Roberts. We'll move on to Councilmember Vogely.
I have no comments right now. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President Tui. So initially I didn't think I was going to make comments maybe to piggyback on Councilmember Roberts' questions. I guess I would throw out another one that I asked to have information on in regards to the Woods Creek property. Maybe why, question I would have is why is the property along 81st Place Southeast there in Valley View seem to have been stable and at least haven't heard of any problems there. So as whoever is looking at those issues, I'd be grateful to have that included as well. And I want to thank the administration for getting on the surprise move of the encampment record there, and look forward to the legal action that I know that City Attorney Hall will brief us on here shortly. Thanks very much.
Okay, and I have just one update that I want to talk about is our meeting next week. We're holding a special meeting of the Everett City Council on July 15th. Meeting will start at 4 o'clock. The main portion of the agenda will be a listening and learning session with guest speakers addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion in our city. And I want to thank Councilmember Vogely for her initiative on this session and her work to bring meaningful information and dialogue on these topics to our council members. We will be hearing from community leaders on barriers to equity from people of color, refugees and immigrants, housing, neighborhoods, English language learners, and law enforcement oversight. So at the beginning of the meeting, we will have minutes and consent items for approval, but we will not do council comments or liaison reports. So if you have something you would like to get to the council members, I suggest that you send them out on email. There will be time for questions and dialogue with our guest speakers, and we're really looking forward to that. So you will be getting an agenda in the email, which will talk about the 4 speakers a little bit and what they are going to bring to the table. Looking forward to it. So that's all my comments for today. We're moving on now to if there's a report from administration.
Thank you, Council President Tui. Yes, just briefly, 3 items. Councilmember Roberts, I think, very comprehensively covered where we're at with the Woods Creek property. I am in conversations with Forterra and working with the neighborhood group there to schedule a meeting so we can identify additional paths forward, as I think we outlined in an email here a couple weeks ago. On the Open Public Meetings Act and Public Records Act, waivers that the governor has been authorizing. Just this week, the governor's office and the legislature did reach agreement on extending both provisions through August 1st. So again, through August 1st, the same exemptions that allow for these virtual meetings will continue to move forward. And then finally, just wanted to, I hope, clarify the chronology here. And I don't think my integrity was intended to be impugned at all, but last week, Councilmember Murphy was correct. We learned that Snohomish County was intent on clearing the encampment that they had allowed to develop over approximately a 4-week period on their property, despite persistent concern voiced by the mayor, myself, and other staff, as well as our police department. The motivation for them to eventually clear their site was that they intended to resume jury selection for jury trials this past Monday and let us know that they were going to order that the residents be dispersed. We didn't learn of any discussions that were going on with the private property owner just a short distance away until Monday evening or Sunday evening or Monday morning. The illegal tent activity was as much of a surprise to us as it was to the 7 of you. I think the mayor's been very strident in her opposition to this. I've shared those emails with council and I've only received positive feedback and support for the position we have and continue to take. I think you'll hear from City Attorney Hall that we're acting with all haste to stop this illegal activity as our code allows. And so I just wanted to clarify again that chronology, and I'm obviously always happy to have further conversations or answer any questions, but I've done my best certainly to keep council in the loop on something that, has been a very difficult and challenging set of circumstances that we've not had a tent encampment of this size in the city of Everett ever, certainly not over the last 2 years. And the only reason it persisted and grew was because the county allowed it on their land despite our constant objection. So thank you very much. No further comments.
All right, thank you for that. Moving on now to city attorney comments. Mr. Hall.
Yes, as both the mayor and Deputy Mayor Harper mentioned, I'm going to provide a brief update on the encampment on the 3200 block of Rucker. This encampment was established without any notice to or permission from the city. It was established in violation of the city's zoning code and also poses a threat to public health and safety. It's illegal, and our team has been meeting to determine how best to use the city's authority to remedy this illegal activity as expeditiously as possible. As a result, code enforcement has issued an emergency order, which is being posted at the property as we speak, requiring the owner to vacate and clean up the property by noon tomorrow. If the owner fails to comply, the city will take any further legal action that may be necessary to resolve the issue and may take action to abate the violation at the owner's expense. Police are in contact with the owner in an effort to achieve voluntary compliance, but at this time, the city intends to pursue all available legal means to bring this property into compliance with or without the owner's cooperation. That ends my report. Glad to answer any questions. Otherwise, I will just tell you that we are asking for an executive session today for 45 minutes with no announcement to follow to discuss a legal matter pursuant to RCW 423110-1I3. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that update. Appreciate it. Deb, do we have any comments from the community for public comment today?
Morning. First, I am going to read the names of the individuals that have provided written comment, and these comments have all been provided to administration and to the clerk as part of the record. For public comment, Mike Andrews, John Heath, and Angela D. Filippo, and then an Arlene Blake called in. For item number 13, we received written comment from Avianca Walker, Brian Mayon, Debbie Unfield Wise, Jill Ryan, Ethel McNeil, Catherine Thomas, Simone Tarver, and Dick McManus. And again, I forward those all to the city clerk as well as administration and all the council members. Waiting to speak today, we have 4 callers. As I call your name, please remember to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please hit *6 to unmute yourself. Please give your name and address for the record, and please remember to wrap up at 30 seconds. The first caller is caller number 1774. Please hit *6 to unmute.
This is Robert Smiley. My address is 18919 81st Avenue West, Edmonds, Washington, 98026. And I'm calling about the encampment. What happened was there is a state of emergency, so I don't understand when they say no. There's not. They had put the eviction on these people from the courthouse without having any place for them to go, which is against federal law with the mandate that went out. Our biggest concern is we're not able to go onto the property at the courthouse and help the people the way we wanted to be able to help them. We're going out there now. We've got this tent set up, and I'm trying to provide all the security I can, but the stories that these people don't want help or assistance are false. We are getting people signed up with 211 and getting them into the system. As currently, we have 14 people that were in that encampment that moved over here that are now moving out into their own property. We've got a total of 7 people that have been placed in detox and treatment, confirmed. We're registering everyone. 5 people that got housed and 2 more that are getting housed right now, 2 pregnant women. There's a majority of these people are not addicted to drugs like they're being accused of. They just need help. They're getting cut off because of a pandemic or employment, and they're willing to do the work, but nobody's letting them. They're harassing them instead of walking them through the process. We're in the process now. We've got several people signed up to go get their IDs, go get their vouchers with DSHS, and then we're going to take them to DOL to get their IDs. These people want help, but if the only help that's being offered is detox and treatment, a majority of these folks don't need it. And I'm kind of continuously trying to battle this. We're practicing social distancing. When problems arise, we remove people from the property, keep them from coming back. This was all thrown up to Sunday at 12 p.m., excuse me. I provided an email earlier last week to city council and other activists of 6 other more appropriate places for them to go. One of which was the Longfellow building. And all 6 of those places, I can forward the email to anybody that wants it, are places that are on asphalt. They're away from the community, but nobody would respond or communicate because of the holiday weekend. I put them over here. This is my fault. The landowner did not really know what I was doing, but he knows that I will get these people help. I will get them off the street. And the ones that are left behind, those are people that might need to be arrested. But in closing, I just want people to know I'm willing to work with anybody and everybody. And I'll transport these folks to wherever you guys will allow. And you guys can get credit for taking these people off the street and getting their lives back online and minimizing the amount of homeless that are out here.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Smiley. Thank you so much. Our next caller is caller 1774. Again, caller 1774, please hit *6 to unmute yourself. Please give your name and address for the record. Thank you. Hello, caller 1774, please hit *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, we'll come back to you. Caller 0722, please hit *.
That was me, 1774.
Thank you. Caller 0722, please hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Brittany Try. I live at 4311 30th Drive Southeast, Everett, Washington. I am a local attorney in the area. I'm a public defender. I am out at this encampment right now. I was also at the sweep on Sunday, and I am very concerned about the way the county and the city is handling this. I would echo the comments of Mr. Smiley that we do have a state of emergency, one that's also been declared by the governor. People don't have a place to go. People are losing their jobs. This encampment here, if any of you have been down, you would see that there is not drug use happening here. It is clean. There's signing people up for services. It is crazy to me how organized this is. I'm so impressed with the work that was put together. And you've got county and city officials saying that people are refusing services. And I can tell you right now that's not true because I've watched people accept services today. I'm here with a group of attorneys. We have reached out to the ACLU. I do know that there are legal concerns with kicking people out of the only place that is safe for them with nowhere else to go. So if the city doesn't want them in this location, where can they go? Set up an empty parking lot for them. Set up an empty building for them. But to tell these people that they just have to leave and not provide them with anywhere that they can go, these people are terrified. Somebody was here just 15 minutes ago threatening to shoot everybody here. I cannot tell you how scared some of these people are. And this group that you guys complained about being such a large group and you hate them being able to gather together, well, they feel safe in numbers. And now you want to send them all off by themselves or threaten to arrest them. So if you can afford to put them in jail, why can't you afford to give them an empty lot or somewhere to go? This is outrageous to me. I'm so disgusted by what my city is doing. I cannot, the disdain in your voices as you were talking about people, human beings that just need some support during a global pandemic. There is help here. There is support. Yes, it happened quickly because they were kicked out quickly, and somebody, Mr. Smiley, was able to come up with somewhere for them to go. Because what else would have happened on Sunday if they had nowhere to go? Does anybody know? Would they have ended up in jail? What would they have done with their stuff? Because the sign said it was getting thrown away. This is just, you have to provide an actual solution to the problem. Telling people that they have to just get out with nowhere to go. Shelters are shutting down. Shelters are requiring COVID-19 tests. If you want to get in, shelters have had to limit capacity so that they can follow social distancing guidelines. I work with homeless populations all the time.
30 seconds.
It's already hard. It is already hard to get housing. That is one of the hardest things that my clients struggle with. And it's exacerbated right now with the state of emergency of a pandemic. And so what I'm asking for is for the city to get rid of this emergency order, allow these people the 30 days that they were asking for. That is not that long of a time to get them signed up for services, to hopefully get some of these people back on their feet. There is no public safety risk here. I'm standing here right now looking at it. This is not a public health issue. This is not a public safety issue. This is
Thank you very much.
Lacking humanity.
Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate your comments. President Tui, those are all the individuals I have signed up to speak at this time.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Really appreciate your work on our public comments. So do I have moving on to our consent items, do we have a motion for the 11 consent items?
Vogel.
Okay, do I have a second for the consent items?
Roberts, second.
Thank you. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Stonecipher?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogel?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
He's excused.
And President Tui.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Moving on to our action item. We have one item for action today. Item number 12, authorize the mayor to sign the biosolids tolling agreement. Do I have a motion?
Vogely, motion, move that motion.
Murphy, second.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Let's see, Councilmember Stonecipher.
Yes.
Do you have a any
I'm
questions?
sorry. I have no questions.
All right, Councilmember Murphy.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Roberts.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Vogely.
No questions.
All right, and Councilmember Bader had to leave early, so I don't have any questions either. And I don't believe we have anyone to speak on this item. So, Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Stonecipher.
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
President Tui.
Yes. Now, before the City Council on our briefing agenda today, serving as the Council Committee of the Whole, and is likely to be scheduled at a future meeting, we have item number 13, Council Bill 2006-40, first reading, adopt an ordinance establishing Juneteenth as a recognized city holiday, third and final reading on July 22nd of 2020. And I believe Candy Bartlett is here presenting.
Councilmember Tui, I apologize. This is Lori Cummings. I'm going to introduce Michael Dewar, who's here presenting. So prior to that, as council members know, we're bringing forward the ordinance recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday beginning in 2021. Many of you know Michael Dewar, our HR manager with the city, and he'll be briefing on this item shortly. Council may recall after the mayor proclaimed Juneteenth a holiday, she learned an ordinance and council approval was required. She notified City Council she would be bringing forward an ordinance requesting council approval for Juneteenth as a holiday, and today is the first of 3 readings and the briefing. This is an important action. It is about recognizing that this is a holiday worth celebrating, about making a public statement on the importance of this day in history and leaning into leadership. So thank you, Michael, for briefing on this ordinance.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, thank you. My name is Michael Dewar. As Lori said, I'm an HR manager with the city here. And I'm here to give you just a brief overview of the proposed Juneteenth holiday ordinance. As a day, Juneteenth commemorates the arrival of the Union Army in Galveston, Texas on 19 June 1865, and the proclamation that all slaves in Texas were free. In the intervening 155 years since this historic event, the observance of Juneteenth has come to honor the history, perseverance, and achievements of African Americans, and celebrates America's progress and continuing commitment to realizing the principles of liberty and equality upon which our nation was founded. It is a day to remind ourselves of the hardships and losses suffered by African Americans in the struggle for equality, and to celebrate and rejoice in the freedom and civil rights that we as all Americans share. Based on this background, the purpose of this ordinance is twofold. First and foremost, it's to provide rightful recognition of Juneteenth as a holiday. Official recognition of Juneteenth represents one small step, part of our larger continuing process of reconciliation, and the recognition and addressing of ongoing issues of racial justice. The second element of this ordinance is the formal and structural adoption of Juneteenth as a paid annual holiday for city staff, and in doing so, join other public and private entities in consecrating the magnitude of this occasion. In taking these actions, the city of Everett will lead the way in our region and will set the example for other jurisdictions, acknowledging the support of the community on this action. So I guess with that, questions?
All right, thank you. We'll move to see if there's any questions or comments from City Council. We'll start with Councilmember Stonecipher.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I appreciated the information that we received about the cost of this holiday, and have some questions about that. So, and it's not just an issue of cost to me. I think the question of whether this is a holiday worth celebrating is one that is, I think we can all agree that it is a holiday worth celebrating. I think the question that I am struggling with as a council member and policymaker for the city is just how we implement this, and is this the, do we do this at the expense of other actions that we may be able to take that could help improve the lives of our citizens? So if we talk about giving a day of vacation, additional holiday to our employees, we have approximately 1,200. You know, that represents an incredibly large number of work days that we would be giving up. And while for some that doesn't really involve additional cost, some employees, for the bulk of our employees, which is our fire and our police department, the largest departments of our city, it does involve additional cost, and it's more than $9,000 or whatever the estimate was. So can you please help me from an HR perspective understand, when we give another holiday off for fire or police, how do we fill in with those? Because the people we have are all full-time, and my understanding has been that, for example, if a police or firefighter has to go take a training day, that we have to backfill that with somebody who's working overtime for that. Is that not the case when we have a holiday like this?
I'm coordinating with Michael Doerr on the response. Some of our labor agreements recognize holidays differently. And in the case of police, for example, they have a lump sum recognized holidays. We are in discussions with the police union and the fire union as well to not have any additional costs incurred for this additional holiday. And I'm happy to defer to Michael if he has more to add on that with his familiarity with the labor agreements. But it is different than some of our other employees where there would be a compensation at time and a half. Not all the police officers will take a holiday, for example, on a holiday. They have a lump sum recognition of holidays because in the public safety arena, we need them to work. And so part of the agreements allowed for that. So, but Michael, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, what I would add is that, the city will need to engage in a labor process with our 6 unions in discussion on how exactly this holiday would pan out. We've made just tentative contact to let them know that this may be an item coming down the track at them. By and large, yes, police and fire are a 24/7 operation. There are, of course, other work units at the city, parks, public works, where this may be a day where a backfill or the minimum crew type staffing model that police and fire experience is not necessarily a foremost concern. Certainly, we do have some operations that do require 24-hour staffing, though.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing is that even the estimate of $9,000 is really, I think, under question about this, because it really depends on how we work this out. I mean, I'm thinking we have 250 police officers in our employ. And so if we give each of them an additional day off, and it sounds like they're able to use those more like a floating holiday, obviously we can't have every single police officer off on the same day, then we're talking about 250 work days. That's almost a full-time employee that we would be needing to backfill this in one day. So I am concerned about the cost of this and how this would play out in our community with 1,200 people. But it's not my primary concern. I just think that it's something that we have to think about. We've just laid off, I mean, administration could probably correct me in the numbers, but we've laid off 70 people at least. And I don't know how many people we have had take the voluntary separation program, but we're down substantially in staffing. We keep hearing that, you know, we can't do this or can't do that because of staffing constraints. And so adding more pressure onto that when at a time when our community needs our services that we provide just seems to me to be not well thought out. And so I have a lot of concerns about that. I do have some concerns about our bargaining unit agreements. You know, I've been doing this city council business for several years, and one thing I do know is that you should really never give up anything on an agreement without negotiating, you know, something in return. If the bargaining unit wants an extra day of holiday, then we should be talking about how we can make that work with us. So it sounds like administration has it on their radar that they need to bargain this, but I would like to understand better what the result of that would be for our citizens and the services we provide to them before we go ahead and declare this. And then I guess my final comment would be not really a question, but a comment, which is just that I think there is a lot of work that we need to do on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm just thrilled to hear that the mayor has identified someone within the city who can come to work every day to work on this issue. But I, for my part, would prefer to see a menu of options for what we could do. Again, if we're talking about having 1,200 work days of labor to put toward this issue the Black Lives Matter groups have brought forward, there is so much work that we could do. And I mean, that's almost five full-time employees. And so if we have that kind of labor that we could use toward this effort, I think that from my way of thinking, I'd like to understand what other ways we could avail ourselves of that type of resource use to make progress on, you know, the issues of equity and justice that the Black Lives Matter movement is bringing forward. And I'm just not sure that providing an additional day of vacation for the admittedly mostly white workforce that works at the city of Everett, I'm sure that giving them an additional day of paid vacation makes the kind of progress that I think that we could make on some of the issues that have been brought forward. So I'm not really in favor of this. I also note that this is Juneteenth doesn't come around again for almost a year, maybe a year and less than a month, maybe 11 months. So I'll be interested to hear what the rest of my colleagues have to say on this matter, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Stonecipher, can I just add that we'll be happy to provide additional information on and the clarity on the way holidays work for our public safety, specifically police. It's not a floating holiday. It's a lump sum. But again, I'd like to ask our HR director and Michael to work together and provide council a little more detail on the costs that we estimated and why they were so low. And get back to you on that as well.
Okay, moving on to questions or comments from Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you, President Toohey. Yeah, I share some of the same concerns with this that Councilmember Stonecipher brought up, and in particular, when the mayor had originally sent her email out a couple weeks ago to all the staff declaring this holiday, and went on in that very same email to talk about all of the departures that had recently been made between the layoffs and the furloughs and voluntary separation program. There was a statement in there that that says, as quote, "I know that these departures on top of the other departures due to layoffs are painful, disruptive, and hugely impacting our teams. The workers may be going, but the work is still here. And now we have fewer people to get things done. My hope is that you will work with your supervisors to find new ways to set expectations around your workload. We'll need to let some of the work go and accept that we will not be able to provide all city services in the manner we've done before. We simply don't have the resources, staff, or otherwise. Sadly, this is just where we are right now, end quote. So in that very same email where the mayor declared this holiday, which later she did retract that the following week after Councilmember Stonecipher and I pointed out that this was not appropriate. In that very same email, the mayor talks about all of the people who've left the city, all of the work that can't be done, all of the expectations that need to be reset about the city services being provided that the taxpayers are paying for. And so I mentioned in my earlier council comments about the cost estimates, and again, the cost is only one part of it. I had requested cost information, and what I've been provided shows about between $7,000 and $8,000 is the administration's estimated labor expense noted in the table provided. So I really don't understand when you have 1,200 employees being given another holiday, which would be, as I understand it, their 13th holiday. So already the city employees receive 12 holidays, which I think compared to most of our community members and residents, I think most people would probably be surprised to find out that our city employees have 12 holidays. And of those 12, my understanding is 10 are recognized holidays and 2 are floaters. So the employees actually get to sort of pick 2 days. And I don't begrudge our employees their benefits. They're hard earned and well deserved. But the idea that with all of the other team members that we've lost through this pandemic and this financial crisis, and even in the mayor's own comments, she talks about all of the work that we can't get done. The idea that we would take 1,200 employees and give them another day off, which would just simply mean more work that needs to get done can't be provided to our citizens and our taxpayers and our residents. It just doesn't resonate for me. And again, I don't understand the $7,000 to $8,000 cost estimate. I've requested the information and it has not been provided to me, but I have roughly estimated the cost at over $500,000 per year. So I have concerns with that. And I also agree with Councilmember Stonecipher that the idea that we celebrate or somehow figure out a way to recognize Juneteenth, I think is entirely appropriate. And I welcome this opportunity to talk about how we might do that and what are the options for us to figure out a way to recognize this important historical date. But we all know that our workforce, our 1,200 employees, is disproportionately comprised of white folks, and so I don't understand how providing them a 13th holiday necessarily with our limited resources as a city is the best way to go about recognizing Juneteenth. So those are some of my concerns and comments, and look forward to further discussion and further information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilmember Roberts, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, President Toohey. I think the questions that I have been raised in terms of looking more precisely at the real costs and operation. I would add just a couple of comments, and that is that, you know, having attended Juneteenth celebrations in the last few years, and in particular this year, the need to change how we do business, I think, is an important piece. And I know as a white person who's tried very hard to deal with diversity and, you know, has tried to champion those causes during any time that I've had the opportunity to do so, I feel like this moment is one that requires listening. I certainly felt that way as I listened to John Lovick and other speakers in the last Juneteenth celebration, that this is time to listen. And I would like to see us find a way to support a Juneteenth recognition, and whether that's exactly a holiday or how we do that, I think it's important that we spend some time listening to our community, and I know we're scheduled to do some of that next week. And I appreciate Councilmember Vogely and Council President Toohey and anyone else who's been supportive of that, doing so. But I also think we have time to do this right. Juneteenth was just a few weeks ago, and it gives us time to really sort out the important questions of what can we be doing to look at equity and diversity and appropriately addressing those. I appreciate the comments of the mayor that we are pulling some resources together to pay attention to those issues, which I think are important. So I would like to see us take the time that I think we have to hear what the community has to say, to look at what actions that might be meaningful, including this one, but to do that in a thoughtful way with the broader community. So I guess that's sort of where my response is at this point, and interested in hearing what others may have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Councilmember Vogely.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for bringing this up and to, so we can have this conversation and dialogue. I'm still uncertain. I know that I want this to be a holiday. I think it is well deserved. I understand the arguments of us all being white and most of the staff being of European descent, and I've also heard from the Black community and people of color that this can't be the only thing that we do. We must do more action, equitable action for our communities. And, we are having the listening session next week. But there's also been quite a few emails of just the absolute fulfillment and joy that our Black residents would get from having the city of Everett declare this a holiday, because it does mean so very much to a people that were literally brought to our to our country, our colonization to create wealth for European descendants. So I think that we can do more, and I think that we will do more. And I know that I will be pushing for doing more real policy action, decisive, making our city a better place. And I do think that if Juneteenth were a city holiday, hopefully it would become a federal holiday eventually. But it's definitely a time for awareness and I know that right now we do not have any money. We cannot go out and be within 6 feet of each other, and we have to wear masks, and the pandemic is horrid. But I am hopeful that one day we will be able to congregate again, and it would be a fantastic tribute to be able to, gather our citizens and residents and celebrate another person's freedom. So I could ramble on forever, but I think it's a fantastic opportunity for awareness and, just giving back a little bit, even though, that's all I got right now.
Okay, thank you for that. And Councilmember Bader has had to leave the meeting. I do believe that this is an opportunity, that this would be a very appropriate national holiday. I know that there's conversations in Washington, D.C. about making it a national holiday, which is great. And I hear that it may be taking the place of Columbus Day is one of the thoughts. to remember and reflect on some of the saddest events in our history is important, so that we, with the goal to remember and to learn as we move forward, which is what we need to do with racial equity. And, you know, my reservation has just come up that, you know, looking at it as the paid holiday, which I know our employees do deserve it, but right now I feel it's a really tough time, and our actions need to be very reflective of the time. And so if we can just take a little extra time on this and be thoughtful and make sure that it's in the best interest of our city and the community members that we serve, then I think having, you know, taking some time or looking at other options as far as the paid holiday piece goes, I think I would like to look at options, just, you know, so we can see that. But I certainly think a day of remembrance on Juneteenth is probably very vital in the healing process for our country. So with that, if anybody else has any thoughts or comments, we're open to anything else before we move on.
Council President Tui, this is Councilmember Stone-Cipher. And I agree with you. I think that there's a possibility that the federal government will answer this question for us, and I will welcome that. I also very much agree with Councilmember Vogley's comments that this is a wonderful celebration, but can't be the only thing we do. And given that we are really just embarking on this work toward looking at the alternatives that we have, I worry that if we take this action first, that the truly the cost of this action will preclude our making other choices at a later date. And so therefore, I would like to move that we table this matter indefinitely until we are able to look at and do some of the work that we need to do, getting input from our community and contemplating the types of actions that we think that we could take to address the Black Lives Matter mandates that have been put forth by the groups that are doing all this good work in our community and nationally. And so I would move that we table indefinitely and would hope that someone would second that.
Okay.
Council President Tui, this is Councilmember Murphy. I really appreciated the comments that came after mine. In particular, Councilmember Roberts talking about listening. I think that is super important. We need to do that. And also Councilmember Vogley's comments as well as yours. And so with all that has been said, I agree that we should continue to listen and learn about the options, evaluate what we can and should do as a city in recognition of Juneteenth. But for the here and now, I would second the motion of Councilmember Stone-Cipher to table this item indefinitely.
Okay. And I'm not sure if we need a vote on that, or does that just table it? I would have to ask.
No, this is
Mr.
David Hall. You should allow for some discussion on the motion to table and then take a vote on that motion.
Okay. All right, so we'll see. Council member, we'll go down the list again. Council member Stone-Cipher, do you have any other comments?
No, I've said what I have to say.
Okay, Council member Murphy?
No further comment, thank you.
Council member Roberts?
Thank you, President Tui. I think tabling is the appropriate action, but I would hope, and I think in the motion and the second, the intent is to really have further discussion on these issues, and I can support the motion to table with that in mind, and I think that's what was intended by the maker and the second of the motion. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with you on that. Councilmember Vogley, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do not like the idea of tabling indefinitely. I know that we have some listening sessions coming up and some work meetings hopefully in the works, and indefinitely sounds like too big of a number. So that's where I'm going with that. I very much want to keep this at the forefront I don't know if that can be changed, if there can be a tabling until, 2 months or after we've heard from a certain amount of people. But
we definitely can do that if you want to put. See, today's July. I don't know. Do you think we can get some information back on options and all the questions that we had within 2 months?
I know. Think we could. July, okay. August, September.
This is Mayor Cassie Franklin. I wonder if you table it today, I'm happy to work with the HR department to put some thoughts together on what steps we need to take to answer your questions, to work with our equity manager on how best we can support council in additional listening work to our BIPOC communities, and put a timeline for bringing it back, if that would be helpful.
I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, and I think considering, even though we may not have realized it, the mayor has been doing a lot of stuff with staff to help equity and inclusion in our city, and the council, we need to do more. So a timeline would be helpful. I don't know if I get to say that, or if Stone Cipher would like to amend her thing.
This is Councilmember Stone Cipher. My only concern is just that I know these things do take time, and part of the work that I think we need to do is to have a comprehensive understanding of the composition of our city workforce and the efforts that we would need to take to have that workforce reflect more closely the racial composition of our community. And I just know that these things take time, and I'm happy to amend the motion to table, but I would be reluctant to put a fixed time frame on it. I mean, basically, when I say indefinitely, it's like, let's bring it back when we have done a body of work so that we understand the complexity of the other choices that we might be forestalling by choosing to do this.
No later than 6 months down the road. I don't know.
This is Councilmember Murphy. I agree with Councilmember Stone Cipher. There is a lot of work to be done here, and that the whole idea that we have a better understanding of what has happened over the last couple of years in terms of hiring practices. I appreciate the mayor's comments at the beginning of the meeting, but I really would like to have an understanding of where we are as a city in terms of diversity through a number of different measures, and I also would look forward to seeing whether this comes forward in another way, whether it be through the federal government or the state government. And I don't know that that will happen in the next 2 months or 6 months, but I do think that indefinitely doesn't mean forever. It just means that we'll know at some point down the road when we have enough information, a body of information, to be able to bring this back and answer the question. And I even think about getting through our budget process, which we have a mountain to climb here in the next 4 or 5 months. So I'm pretty comfortable with the motion, and I did second it. And with the commitment to continue to work on this and bring it back at some point down the road, I think we should all be comfortable that we've taken reasonable steps here.
And when the mayor, yeah, Councilmember Roberts.
Councilmember
yes.
Roberts, if I may, I would just respectfully say that, and I appreciate Councilmember Vogel's comment. I would respectfully say that the sense that I get from the conversation for every council member is that this is not being swept under the rug. It is rather being brought into and incorporated into a broader discussion of the things that we can do that are meaningful as far as trying to bring equity, not only to Black Lives Matter, but to our community as a whole. That's what I heard in Councilmember Vogel's comments. I support that, and that's what I'm really hearing in everyone's comment. Thank you.
Whoops, there you go. Any other comments from anybody?
BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. That's all.
Okay. Thank you for reminding us. Brenda, for the clerk, would you mind restating your motion, please?
I move to table this matter indefinitely.
Okay, and it was seconded. Clerk, will you please take the roll then?
Councilmember Stonecipher.
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Bogley.
No.
President Toohey.
Yes. And with that, we will now move into executive session, which was expected to last up to 45 minutes with no announcement anticipated. I will reconvene and adjourn from this meeting. And I will say we'll have a 5-minute pause before we get into our executive session.